What knowledge would make your life as a permaculture practitioner easier? What skills would make your work more delightful? What class would you want to take if you could easily find it? This is the Permaculture Podcast. I'm Scott Mann, and these questions came to mind during a discussion with my friend Mike, who was looking for information on fire making, finding water, identifying edible and medicinal plants, building shelter, and basic wilderness first aid. In this episode, I'm going to explore the list of resources I shared with Mike and invite you to answer those opening questions by getting in touch with me. All that contact information is at the end of the episode. So when it comes to primitive and wilderness survival skills, the book that got me started on these was Bushcraft by Richard Graves. Of all the books I've owned over the years on survival and outdoor living skills, this is the one I've never gotten rid of. If you're of a certain age and from the United States, you probably have a book somewhere that has a brown paper bag on it that you used as a cover. Mine still has the one that I put on it as a preteen using electrical tape. I like this book because it is an assortment of skills that can be used for building a village and keeping everyone in it alive, and includes a lot of great information that's easily to find and refer to, and really builds on skills from chapter to chapter. If you're looking for something more on basic survival and preparedness, I like 98.6 Degrees and When All Hell Breaks Loose by Cody Lundeen. He focuses on skill and knowledge building over gear, and his EDC kit can be acquired for tens of dollars rather than hundreds. He doesn't really require you to buy a bunch of stuff. I think the single most expensive item in his recommendations is a fixed blade Mora knife, and you can get a really good one of those for under 20 bucks. If you do decide to get a Mora knife, I recommend the Mora knife Companion Heavy Duty over the classic number 1 because it has a better handle and I like the sheath better. That classic number 1 is what Cody recommended at the time when he wrote the book, but yeah, I think that the Companion Heavy Duty is just a better choice. When it comes to foraging and wild food as cuisine, I would start with the books of Sam Thayer if you live in the United States. He writes about a large number of plants that you can find in North America. Even if all of those aren't available in your area, he just provides so much useful information. I highly recommend it. More importantly, he writes generally about foraging in a way that's helpful for developing the mindset and skill sets to do so safely. As an example, he talks about look-similar plants rather than look-alikes, because once you know a plant well, you understand that the apparent similarities come from ignorance, and that they are truly distinct once you know them. Mushrooms may be a little bit different, but that's a conversation for another day. Living in an urban environment, I would follow up Sam's work with The Fruit Forager Companion by Sarah Burr, as she writes about foraging for fruit in your community and your neighbors' backyards. Because of the root-fruit barrier, fruits are also generally much safer to eat when harvested in a city than leafy greens or roots. They're just something you can collect, put into your colander, wash off, drain, strain, and then be able to eat. A book I think is essential to any foraging library is Foraging and Feasting by Dina Falcone. Gorgeously illustrated, I add this to the list because of the way Dina approaches adding flowers and other flavorful finds to our dishes to take foraged foods from being survival or subsistence foods and elevates them to culinary delights for the table. She extends this further with a selection of dozens and dozens of master recipes that break down traditional dishes into the types of components used, so you can take what you forage along with some items that you probably already have in your kitchen and make something familiar, like using garlic mustard instead of basil in a pesto. Once you start experimenting, if you want additional inspiration for on how to use foraged foods in the kitchen, follow up Dina's work with Pascal Baldar's The New Wildcrafted Cuisine. For first aid, I'd start with the Stop the Bleed class and pick up 2 cat tourniquets and start carrying them with you. There's lots of tourniquet options on the market, but I wouldn't trust those over a cat. They're just the best that you can get. They go in quickly and they're easy to find. I linked to NAR because that's where I buy mine. They carry the latest version of the cat and it's always new stock. Once you have some cat tourniquets, definitely practice using them because you can put them on and reuse them so you can practice. And then once you've done that, I highly recommend a Stop the Bleed class and recommend taking a Red Cross CPR and first aid class and getting certified in both of those. After that, if you want to take it further and have the time and resources, there are wilderness-specific first aid and EMT classes, but I wouldn't recommend those unless this becomes a passion that you want to pursue, as the other recommendations cover the basics well enough, and many of those wilderness-specific first aid and EMT classes require travel and can get expensive pretty quickly unless it's something you really want to do a lot of. Combining it all together, these books and the knowledge above give you all the skills and knowledge you need to make a splint and crutches, as well if you need to make cordage to assemble a litter or sled to carry someone out of the woods, and so on, and to be able to hydrate them and keep them fed as you get them back to safety, or if you need to use these for yourself. But those are just my thoughts on this. I'd love to hear yours, and if you're someone who's really into bushcraft, what resources do you recommend for people? If you're new to this, what questions do you have, or what would make your life easier based on those questions that I asked in the beginning? As always, you can email me, show@thepermaculturepodcast.com. You can also text or WhatsApp +1 717 827 6266. You can email me, show@thepermaculturepodcast.com, or visit thepermaculturepodcast.com, head up my contact page, and send me a direct message there. Also, make sure to check the show notes because I've included links to where you can buy a cat tourniquet from North American Rescue, as well as interviews with the folks who I mentioned. But yeah, just get in touch, let me know what you think. And until the next time, spend each day learning the skills that make your permaculture practice easier while taking care of Earth, yourself, and each other.